Hello, beautiful people. We're back with another episode of the Aarcadee Lounge. I'm your host, Skyomi, along with my pal, Aarcadee, where we talk about all things gaming. Thank you all for your patience during this brief hiatus that was thrust upon us due to our lives getting a lot more cluttered than usual. Nonetheless, we're glad to be back, and we have a great show for you today. It's hard to believe, but we're reaching the end of the year, so we're going to talk about Halo Infinite's PvP beta release and its splash onto the FPS scene with great success, but also its share of pitfalls. In addition, we'll discuss our favorite games of the year, which we're both super excited to talk about. How you doing, Aarcadee?
I'm doing good, dude. I'm so happy to be back doing this. It's been a long time.
Finally, we're back.
I was thinking of coming in with like an old man voice. Yes, it's been years.
I've waited 75 years.
75 years for this. Oh, man, dude. Yeah, it feels good to be back in our metaphorical studio that exists strictly in a audio space.
Feels like it's been forever. I know we only do this bi-weekly, but taking that one week where we should be having a recording out off, it feels like it's been a long time.
It's been like 5 weeks, dude. It's been so long. Well, we do have a big episode going today, so I guess we should hop right into it. I'm thinking we should start with Halo, just because that's going to take less time to talk about than the games of the year. I guess let's start with something pretty broad. How are you feeling about Halo now that it's out, or the multiplayer beta is out at least? How do you feel about it? Does it feel any different compared to those flight tests you played?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say from the flights, it felt like they had pretty much everything kind of lined up in a row as far as the gameplay felt. It doesn't feel too much different. I heard that there were balancing changes that were implemented for the beta release. Overall, I would say it feels pretty much the same as far as moment-to-moment gameplay. It's just now we have a couple more maps, and we have the battle pass progression and all that stuff. But I'm having a lot of fun. I really love this game. It's a really good time.
It's a lot of fun. You and I actually got the opportunity to get kind of nostalgic with like a big group and play some big team battle. We had like a full group of 12 people over on Discord, and we were having a good time.
Yeah, it was insane. That was, day one on the beta's release. We had 12 people in my server just having a good time. Not trying to sweat or anything, big team battle is not that crazy. It's pretty casual. You can sweat it out if you want, but most people in there are just, for the shits and giggles.
It was pretty funny hearing people call out enemy locations behind you, and then everyone else is like, what, behind who? There's 12 people in here.
Yeah, there were a few of us that didn't know each other as well, so it made that comm structure a bit more chaotic than it probably would have been if we did know each other.
I think that added to the Halo fun. Without it, it wouldn't have been as Halo-y.
Well, coming from a person like me who played 1 through 3 a lot, specifically 2 and 3 were the ones I played the most. Halo 3, I used to host Halo parties at my house and have all my buddies come over with their Xbox, and we just system link up. And oh my gosh, it was so much fun. We all knew each other, so it was really cool to just play amongst your friends and have those Halo parties. It brought me back to that moment feeling like a teenager again.
Do people still have LAN parties?
Honestly, I don't know. Is that even possible in console anymore? Like, I'm a PC elitist now, so I have no idea.
I just mean in general, like, I wonder if, because that was such a big deal for you and I when we were younger, is like you would go to your friend's house and either lug your giant console or use another controller or something, if you weren't able to like take a console, etc. So now it's got me wondering, since, we're like ancient and stuff now, like, do the youth still have fun? Do they still go to their friends' houses?
It sounds pretty cynical, but I would doubt that that's even a feature anymore, considering how split screen has been kind of a thing of the past. I'm not sure if that's an issue with the consoles being able to render all the crazy stuff that's going on in gaming now. But I think it's probably not a thing. Companies, they need their money. They want everybody buying a copy instead of just playing off your two friends' copy that have their Xboxes,
No, I totally get you. And I think that kind of segues into the next thing I wanted to highlight, which is talking about profitable games and whatnot. Halo is free to play, but I personally think that it has some very egregious monetary tactics, and its battle pass could use some work.
Oh yeah, that's putting it lightly. The press is going crazy about it right now, and deservedly so. It's really stingy with how they allow you to progress through the battle pass. They just started giving you 50 XP every match just for playing, but I still think that's just a crawl towards the goal that they should be getting toward on the battle pass. It's really tough to even want to care about the battle pass at this point, considering the progression.
Yeah, I found it kind of strange how quickly everyone's opinion on the game, I wouldn't say necessarily soured, because the game is very mechanically sound, and compared to some other big budget games right now, it runs pretty damn well. Let's be honest, it runs pretty buttery smooth. Like, that game runs very well.
Oh yeah, when it's working, it does. It does have its share of bugs, unfortunately. Like, the game will crash every now and then. UI isn't as smooth as you'd like it to be. It doesn't always update your current fire team members as they come in. So sometimes you have to like click on this menu and then come back to the menu for it to load properly. So little tweaks in there. It's not game breaking besides the bugs that crash. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because upon reflection, and I should mention too, full disclosure, which is slowly becoming a catchphrase of this podcast, but full disclosure here, Sky's played significantly more than I have. I've only played maybe 5-10 hours. How many hours would you say you've played roughly? Do you know?
I have about 55 hours.
Okay, so you've played, an hour or two more than me about. So I think you can weigh in a little bit more on the technical side of things. And I do remember when we were playing, it might have been you, might have been a couple other people were mentioning crashes to desktop, and we had issues getting the game to launch into matchmaking. Yeah, at one point everyone had to leave the lobby and then come back in, and then suddenly things worked. It was very odd.
Mind you, that is first day, and it's gotten better since then, but those problems still exist. They're not pervasive, but yeah, just so you know.
I see. That's good to know. Thank you for the Disney 411 there. Are we allowed to say Disney on the podcast? I was just informed we're not allowed to say Disney on the podcast.
Oh, we're going to have to bleep that
Redacted in post. That leads me into my next question, and I want to know your opinion on this. I know we haven't really had a chance to play all these big games that I'm going to mention, but something that I've been thinking about a lot. I want to hear your take on it. So the media has been ablaze. The media has been ablaze with a lot of negative comments about COD, Battlefield, and I guess now Halo. But from what I've seen in the general player-based discourse, a lot of people are still enjoying Halo, while COD fans and Battlefield fans both are criticizing their respective franchises. Why do you think Halo's like maintaining some popularity or positivity in comparison?
For me, I'm not a part of the COD community or the Battlefield community. I watch them from afar in the news and all that, but I don't buy those games. I don't particularly play them. But if I had to guess, I would think it's because the Halo IP usually takes its time, and there's always a ton of space in between their entries. As far as mainline entries go, this is barring Halo Wars and all that stuff. The mainline entries, they have a lot of time to breathe in between. So I think there's generally going to be a bigger excitement around a new release. And then you kind of stack that on top of COD and Battlefield not having the smoothest releases, because Battlefield is just getting ramsacked right now in the media. That would be my best guess, though. Just a smoother release and bigger gaps of releases between entries.
It's interesting you mentioned that too, because that adds another layer to like this puzzle that I'm slowly piecing for my own narrative on this. Like, I wouldn't say so much about Battlefield because and again, I haven't played Battlefield or COD, only Halo. I think that's true for both of us.
You mean ever, or
in the most recent iterations? I should specify.
Oh yes. Yeah. I haven't played the most recent iterations of either of those franchises.
So the last like Battlefield I played a bit of 5, but the last one I really played was 2. So it's been like a long time since I really played a Battlefield. But I was more so going to bring up that these games, at least COD, it doesn't really reinvent the wheel every time around. It sticks to its guns. And Halo kind of does the same thing. It's never really added a copious amount of cutting edge features. But I think you gave me the other half to that puzzle that I'm trying to put together, is that if COD didn't come out every single year, the fatigue wouldn't be as rampant, and maybe the discourse wouldn't be so strong or negative against that series.
I totally agree. I feel like every year that there's a COD release, there's always that conversation again about fatigue with the franchise. So this year is no different. But I'd also like to challenge you just a little bit with Halo not reinventing itself, because it was a huge thing about Halo Reach coming out, and that's when they were borrowing lots of elements from Call of Duty, because Call of Duty was the competition at the time, and I think it began getting the upper hand as far as player-based popularity kind of thing. Halo, the IP, like, they never had loadouts before Reach. They introduced loadouts. They introduced the sprint function, which was massive controversy for all the Halo fans at the time. I mean, it's not like they were doing something like reinventing the wheel. It was just like reinventing how Halo is played. So they've taken some risk, I think. That was while Bungie was heading it. And then even 343 with Halo 5, lots of people think that it's lost a lot of the Halo identity, but it's still a fun shooter. I don't know. I think they've tried to experiment here and there, but overall, yes, it's still coming back to the Halo formula. There's a through line, I should say, between all of them.
I think it's more so too, I say that referencing your mention of like the mainline Halos. Because yeah, we have Halo Wars, we have Reach, which I don't know, like personally, I don't consider that a mainline. I know a lot of people would still consider it, like...
Really? Careful now, man.
I know.
Like,
oh, uh-oh.
That was Bungie's send-off, man. Okay. I mean, I don't care. But there's a lot of Reach fans, man.
Oh, Reach is my favorite Halo game. It's my favorite narrative from any Halo game. But I don't consider it like a mainline entry. In the same way I wouldn't consider ODST a mainline entry. But a lot of people still really like it, and it still did a lot of things. I think ODST did more to shake up the formula than Halo did. It was like an open world Halo game. It wasn't open world in the sense we know now, but it was, it had those larger hub-based levels that you could explore. Kind of like Destiny. It kind of set that precedent in a way, in my opinion, for kind of how Destiny at first was setting up its level structure. Is there a coincidence? I don't really think so, but it's just something I noticed right now, so I mentioned it. Same with Halo Wars. That's not a mainline Halo. That's a RTS in the Halo world. But that's what I mean, though, is like the main Halos, 1 through 6 or 1 through Infinite, whatever you want to call it, they've changed not that much. Like they have changed things. They've changed with the times, and the narrative goes different places. And Halo hasn't really been static, but it's stuck to its guns more so, I think, than COD has. Because COD went through that whole era where it was ripping off Titanfall. And it was like, we're going to wall run and put exosuits on everybody. And like guns have hollow scopes with hollow scopes. And I don't know. I don't think Halo's really done anything that drastic in its main line.
I would say I would disagree, because I feel like Halo Infinite is them kind of pulling back to classic Halo. This feels a lot like how I remember Halo 3, but just in a modern kind of setting. Because, of course, Halo 3 didn't have Sprint. We have Sprint now. I don't know, man. It just feels more like a Halo 3, because I remember specifically how I felt playing Reach and Halo 4, Halo 5. It didn't have that same Halo magic to me at the time, but Halo Infinite, just off rip, it felt right.
And I can definitely give you that there too, is I haven't played 4 or 5, so I didn't go to that like low point that so many Halo fans went to, because I know a lot of people weren't really a fan of, especially 5. I know it does have its fan base, but it was very controversial, at least from an outsider standpoint.
Yeah.
The last Halo I really played was 3. We kind of talked about this in depth in, I think, the first episode of the podcast, but to revisit it definitely feels the same. So that's maybe why I feel like it's remained the same through its existence as an IP.
Yeah, if you missed those, then yes, it makes sense now why you would feel that it feels like kind of samey.
It all makes sense now. Yeah, it definitely does. Like pointing that out. Now I see the light. All that really matters though, man, is that it's a damn good game. And I'm happy to see friends that haven't hopped on to Xbox in 5-10 years hopping on to play Halo again. It's kind of surreal.
Definitely. I feel the same. With all the, praise that we're giving Halo Infinite, it has its flaws. What are the flaws that you see with Halo Infinite
My biggest flaw with Halo Infinite is my biggest flaw with Halo as a series, and that's using that basic assault rifle at start that takes 3 rounds or 3 full reloads to take somebody out, and it's the most infuriating shit. I know everyone's like a super soldier, but It really messes with the pacing of the game for me. Always has.
Oh man, it's funny because the AR right now in Halo Infinite is a lot stronger than before. At least in my opinion, it feels stronger than previous entries.
Really?
Yeah, maybe my memory serves me wrong, but for all the Halo diehards, I don't know, get at me on Twitter at Skyomi with 2 eyes and contest me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it feels like the AR is a lot more reliable this time around. Just kind of track your target, spray and pray, and hope that they die before you do. But as far as like cons for me, I think one con that I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the theater mode. I may be in a really tiny minority about this, but theater mode is a freaking mess, and I hope it gets fixed quick. I am a guy coming from Overwatch, played tons of hours, more than I'm probably proud of, but I use replay mode in that game like crazy, and I know theater mode is something, I might be wrong, but I think Halo kind of pioneered that for the like gaming industry.
It definitely was up there. I mean, Halo started in, I believe it was '01, and I know it's older than the other games we were talking about, or the other series we were mentioning.
Yeah, I just don't know if there was any other games at the time. I don't think it had it in 1. They might have had it in 2, but
I remember 3 having it, though.
yeah, 3 definitely had theater mode.
And I remember watching all sorts of crazy matches back, and theater mode was awesome. So I definitely am there with you as far as appreciating theater mode, but I don't think I've played the game enough to warrant using it yet. What's the issue with it?
Right now, I feel like the UI isn't all that intuitive. It may be just a me thing, it being a new game, but it's really buggy with showing accurate crosshair placement. So you'll be watching yourself during a fight, and it's replaying as if you're missing all of your shots, but all those hits are registering and you're killing the enemy. And it's really jarring to watch. It's like, what's going on?
You can't see my face, but I'm doing like a very disgusted, confused look. I can't imagine why that would happen.
Yeah, it's extremely jarring, and especially coming from me, because we all know like Blizzard polish is kind of bar none, but I expected more from 343. Like, I didn't expect it to be on the level of Blizzard, but yeah, I'd expected it to be functional, and it functions, but it's not in a pretty way or a way that you would think is ideal.
Yikes.
So please, 343, if you're listening to this, which you're probably not, fix that theater mode. I know it's not top of priority list, but it needs to be on the list.
We're their number one source of feedback for their game. What are you talking about, dude? But you're having a good time overall with it? You're enjoying being back in Halo again?
Oh yeah, overall it's a wonderful game. I'm sweating like crazy in ranked right now, trying to get Onyx. I mean, not really trying to get Onyx. I'm playing with friends that want to be Onyx, so I'm like indirectly trying to be Onyx, and it's a fun time.
Heck yeah. I've never really gotten into ranked in Halo. I can only imagine what that's like. But that could be a whole rabbit hole we could fall down. And we have a whole other conversation we've got to stick in this podcast.
Yeah, we got lots of other stuff to talk about. Halo Infinite, it's going to have much more opportunities to talk about. They're going to have way more news cycles than just this one right now, so we can return to this.
Yeah, we'll be revisiting it in a couple of weeks here anyways, as the campaign hasn't even launched yet, and we'll be checking that out and sharing our opinions then. But for now, I would like to segue into one of the most exciting conversations out of every year for gaming, and that it's Game of the Year nominations. How should we do this?
Well, I think we should start off with kind of our criteria, our loose criteria for picking these games, right?
Okay.
These are our favorite games of the year. We didn't place a specific time window on when they were released, right?
Correct.
We just said it couldn't be later than, like, I guess, Halloween of this year.
Yeah, so basically, in order for it to be a Game of the Year contender, it doesn't necessarily have to be a game that even came out this year. We're still going to have preference towards games that launched in 2021. However, if there is a game that we didn't get around to in the past few years and we maybe played it this year, that's still totally valid, but the cutoff would have been, November? So any game prior to about mid-November of this year is technically eligible to be a contender.
Yes, sir. So that's our loose criteria on how we picked our favorite games. You want to start us off?
Yeah, for my first one, I'm going to go ahead and go with Tales of Arise because it's just a good game, Sky. I think Tales of Arise is a good game.
Oh yeah, I've heard lots of great things about this game.
You know, man, it's just a solid JRPG, and it's so hard to find a JRPG that's captivating. I won't say all the way through because this game does have its low point, but for the most part, the narrative is interesting, and a lot of it tackles more adult themes than you would find in most like Final Fantasy type games, right? Like Final Fantasy does get dark with its themes, but it never goes really deep into them. It's kind of like, oh, this character has angst. Why does he have angst? Oh, he saw his mom die. Okay, let's move on. And that's kind of it. Like, it's never mentioned again. It's just like a side reasoning for this character's angst. So there's still plenty of tropes in Tales of Arise, but there's a lot to love about the characters and a lot of the subject matter and the themes around dispersion of wealth and race and slavery and talking about tyrannical rule. And
Oh, wow.
you know, it goes into all of those sorts of things. And bro, the end of the game made me cry.
I didn't know those kind of topics were...
Oh, yeah. So here's some context. Literally, the beginning of the game, you're playing as this like masked crusader, and you figure out why he's wearing this mask and all that stuff later on. But you're working in this basically this quarry with these people who have these like orbs in their hands, and these orbs are used to harness their astral energy that's just made by them existing and being a person, right? Them actively moving around is producing this energy. This energy is harvested in this orb, which is then taken from their body when they die for nefarious reasons from a tyrannical ruler. And that's just the opening of the game. That's just like the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, so people are being exploited in this way.
Sheesh.
And then boom, 50-hour journey about love and freeing people and purpose, and it's a good time. And if you've ever played a Tales game, you know what you're getting into. The first 30-40% of the game is by the books. You're like, yeah, this is what's happening. And then you get to the end, your objective, you think you can see the finish line, and then boom, everything's twisted on its head, and you're playing like a totally different game. The narrative is night and day between the beginning, middle, and end points.
Wow, that sounds like a thrilling ride right there. I've heard great things, but I didn't know it was just that deep with as far as its themes is tackling.
Yeah, it definitely does not shy away from some darker themes, and it also has its lighter moments. It's not just like edge all the way through. It's got a good mix of stuff. Plus, the combat's fun. If you're a fighting fan, this is a good game to potentially put on your wish list. It's not turn-based like most JRPGs. I know a lot of people hear JRPG and they're like, oh, turn-based, I'm just going to stare at menus. But this is a combo-based game through and through. You're setting up combos and feeding off of your teammates to pull off 150 hit combos and decimate your enemies.
Oh yeah, I've seen the combat. It looks really, really fun. I just haven't gotten around to buying it yet, but one of these days I will.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you are a lover of JRPGs or those types of stories. If anything that was mentioned there is remotely interesting, I highly recommend at least wishlisting it. What about you, Sky? What's your first nom?
For my first nom, I think we'll go with Wasteland 3.
Okay.
So, full disclosure, I know this game came out August of last year, I believe.
We'll allow it.
But yeah, I didn't start playing it until January this year. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I just went on Game Pass and downloaded it and just figured I'd check it out, see what it's about. And man, I was in for a freaking ride. I just didn't know. This game, it follows these, I was going to say Texas Rangers. Every time I hear the word Ranger, I just want to put Texas with it or either Power with it, you know?
The Power Texan Rangers, dude. You don't know them?
As ridiculous as that sounds, I don't know.
I do the same thing, though. And then you realize they're not Texas Rangers. They're just Rangers. They're just called Rangers. The game takes place in Colorado, I think, right?
Yes, it takes place in Colorado. These Rangers, they're from Arizona, though. I guess it picks up from where Wasteland 2 ended. I never played Wasteland 1 or 2, but you're a team called Team November, and it's an isometric turn-based role-playing game in a post-apocalyptic setting. I think everyone's familiar with that. Think Fallout. If you don't know Wasteland, then you already know. But basically, you go to Colorado because Arizona is just effed up, and there's a patriarch in Colorado offering his help to you guys if you help him, basically. Without trying to spoil the story, but, you know, favor for a favor, like normal humans. And the favor for him, he wants you to basically bring his children in line. They're all adults, by the way, but they've all kind of went on their own separate journeys throughout Colorado and ruled their own separate territories. So lots of different missions and chaos happens in between then you meeting his children. It's not the most beautiful game, but I would say the RTS mechanics was really fun and the RPG mechanics mostly. I spec'd out one of my characters trying to play like a tracer playstyle. She was holding a pistol, and I put a lot of points into her combat speed, her luck, and her high evasion, so she could move around and dodge bullets and be able to attack a lot. And I had another melee character with like high action points, so he can just be wailing on people endlessly. That kind of freedom to spec your characters was really, really a ton of fun. Speaking of freedom, there's a lot of freedom of choice in the game when it comes to interacting with the story. You could be as ruthless as you want by killing characters, betraying them, or lying, or if you want to be an upstanding citizen, that's totally up to you. I enjoyed all that about the game. And there's a lot of humor in the game too, especially with this post-apocalyptic setting. I'm sure the writers could be very tempted to just stay in this dark, edgy place at all times. But there's a lot of humor to kind of balance all of that out and keep you like laughing or giggling in certain parts outside of the real heavy moments. I just thought it was a well-balanced game. I was blown away. I didn't think I'd have that much fun in an RTS. It's a hard recommend. I haven't played the DLCs, but as far as the base game goes, it's amazing.
That's a lot of high praise. That's the first one you're going to mention too. I'm looking back already like, damn, we really played some good games this year.
Yeah.
We haven't even really started the list yet, but what I was going to say is I can definitely lend some credence to what you're mentioning. I haven't finished Wasteland 3, but I did play it around the time it launched, and I was definitely taken aback by the humor because the game's genuinely funny. It uses its dark settings and the whole post-apocalyptic American wasteland thing as a resource for a lot of like dark humor and Uncle Sam's gonna get ya kind of stuff. You're like, what the hell does that mean? And then just like some of the clothes you can wear are just so goofy, and the armor outfits and like,
oh yeah, definitely.
And the writing's really, really good. I gotta go back and finish it. I actually just reinstalled it after you had mentioned it, so I'm looking forward to playing that.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And it has a co-op multiplayer, so I think you play with up to 2 people. So you and a bud can run it. I don't have much of like by way of like constructive criticism for it. It's not a perfect game by any means, but I honestly couldn't find anything really bad with the game. I just really enjoyed it. I couldn't put it down. So what about your second pick?
So my second one, I went ahead and listed Valheim, which is a game that is still technically in early access, but...
Oh, the early access.
If you hold on a second, you hold on for a minute. This game feels more complete than most games that I've played, even at launch, which was earlier this year. I want to say February or April, maybe. I could be wrong on the time, but it came out early in the year, and it's basically a crafting survival game based in a Viking setting. So... you are a Viking existing under the giant life tree, and you are trying to defeat like these 5 big bad guys. There's not like a huge premise to it. It's kind of a soft setup. You're here, kill bad guys, progress through, go to different biomes. You're basically just dropped into this land, this massive randomly generated map, and you kind of have to go from there. So it's a lot of trial and error. If you've ever played a survival game, you know to immediately run toward a tree and beat the ever-living hell out of it. Do that, get some stones, and you start making some tools, make a crude home, and go from there. And then later on in the game, you start doing more advanced stuff. You got your smithing going on, and you've got your tanning rack, and, you know, doing delves into dungeons to find loot and all of that good stuff to, you know, maybe make alchemy or how would you say that? Do alchemy? Make alchemy? Is alchemy a thing you make? I don't know how you'd say that.
I don't know. Not much experience with alchemy, if I'm honest.
Yeah, same here. I'm not really well versed in the realm of alchemy, but the game feels extremely polished and it feels really fleshed out. There's a copious amount of content there for what it is. And I think I found a lot of interest in the game because, one, it's co-op, so you can play it with a big group of people.
How big?
A lot of the servers that we were playing, I think were like 10 people max.
Oh, okay.
You can still play with a decent group, and you can help each other build things up and kind of build little communes and whatnot. And beyond that, there's boss battles that I kind of mentioned. In order to progress through the game and unlock certain tiers of things that you can craft and whatnot, you have to take on these world bosses. I won't go into detail as to what they are because they're all very interesting and mechanically different, but they become these kind of like a world boss you'd see in an MMO where you and your friends kind of get together and sword and shield to take down this boss that makes you look so small. I don't want to like oversell it and make you think you're fighting like a giant Jotun or something, like this massive beast, but you'll get knocked around if you just stand there in front of one of the bosses. And it's not quite Monster Hunter, but it still has a good amount of combat to it too. And then there's base defending, and you have to build your fences and stuff to keep the night creatures out, and all these imps and forest creatures will come about, and you have to kind of take them down. And there's just so many systems that feed into one another, and then you match that with the co-op aspect, and it's just a good time.
Awesome, man. Well, with Valheim, it's a Viking setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with all the combat, if you're fighting a boss, is it mostly just going to be like up close melee combat, or is there range combat as well?
There's both. You could do both.
Okay. I was just trying to picture in my head.
Yeah, so it's very rudimentary, but it's not basic. We're not talking Dark Souls either. You could do like a forward lunge swipe or like a shield bash or do something like that and preoccupy an enemy while someone behind you is taking pot shots or whatever with their bow and arrow. And every boss has its own mechanic to it that you have to figure out, so there's a little depth to those battles. But again, it is early access. There's a lot there to do. I think I have some 40, 50 hours in the game, and that's not even playing all the content. But yeah,
Sheesh.
We could see it fleshed out a lot more in the future, which we will. They're still announcing more updates and all that good stuff. So that's a good one to keep an eye on if you're a fan of the survival crafting simulator. What about you? What do you got for number 2?
For number 2, I've got... All right, this is a controversial pick,
no.
I guess. But it's Cyberpunk 2077.
Cyberpunk 2077!
Honestly, I thought it was a great game. I see all of the shortcomings of the game, right? There's a lot that I can criticize about my experience, especially at the time. I played it day one when it came out on PC. But I thought that the writing was really well done for a lot of the mainline missions. I enjoyed all the side characters. V took me a minute to get to like them as a character. They were just kind of bratty at first, but...
And who's V again? Is that the protagonist?
V is a protagonist.
Okay.
Sorry for anyone that doesn't know. I guess I'm just assuming everyone knows about Cyberpunk since it's, one of the biggest games ever. It's probably horrible of me to do that. Sorry. But yeah, surprisingly decent shooting mechanics. The gunplay, way better than I expected. Not as great as like a pure FPS game such as Apex, COD, Halo, or even Overwatch, but it still holds its own. And it's a looker too. I mean, really beautiful game when it's working properly. It has some really great environments. Night City looks amazing. I don't know, all of that with the voice acting and the writing. I just thought it deserved being on like my favorites for this past year that I played, because I remember those. I think it took me 5 days, but I played 5 days in a row to get done with the story. Like, I couldn't put the game down. I've said that line a lot, but all these games that I'm picking for favorites, I literally couldn't put them down.
Yeah, and I get you, man. Like, it's so easy to like hop on the bandwagon of just like talking down on Cyberpunk, but I really do think, aside from things like the core mission structure or just how certain aspects of the game's core design were handled, I do think it brought a lot of really cool ideas to the table. Like the first time you walk out of your apartment and go into Night City and get into a car and hear the music playing and just see the camera pan out as you just get to see the scope of the game, that still is something I can close my eyes and like distinctly revisit and relive. I don't know, it's a fun game except for when it fell flat. Then it was really rough. But that was also a year ago, so I know they've worked on it for a year. Have you played it since it first came out?
I played a little bit of it today. I played only one mission just for a quick second to kind of get a feel for the game again, if it feels any smoother or not, or how I feel about the game now.
What was the consensus?
For me, it still felt like a smooth experience. Granted, I only played for about, I don't know, how long did that mission take? Maybe like 10 minutes or so.
Oh, okay. So it was like a little snapshot. It was a sliver.
Little, very small snapshot. Yes, indeed.
Okay. I would be interested in revisiting it sometime with you, and maybe we could do like more in-depth comparison or look into it.
Yeah, sure thing. I think it's worthy of revisiting for sure. All right, so now that we got Cyberpunk out the way, probably a lot of haters hating on me for putting that in there. Let's get into your third pick.
It's okay. Did you hear what I was saying about Halo earlier? You're good, dude. Okay, final pick here. And we didn't put these in any order, by the way. These are just all games that we would like to see as potential games of the year. With that out of the way, I'm going to go with Chicory, which is a game that a lot of people probably aren't going to recognize based off of the name. Maybe they've seen it, or maybe I'm completely wrong and I shouldn't assume so much about people. Regardless, Chicory is an awesome game, and that's a game I could confidently say everyone should check out.
Yeah, I didn't know what this game was. I had to do my research on it when you shared that with me. But it looks like a really unique game.
I'm glad you checked it out. I think it's a game most people would at least find some sort of comfort or enjoyment in. There's something in it for everybody, and I guess I should explain what it is. Okay, so Chicory is a game about a dog that you can name whatever you want. You can name it after whatever food you want. I think by default it's named Pizza. I named my character Hot Sauce, and the game is about you kind of finding your creative voice while simultaneously saving the world. I don't want to get into too many narrative spoilers because I think it's a very interesting journey that is better left up to experiencing versus hearing, but the gist of it is you take this magical paintbrush and you go through a series of journeys to save the day, pretty much. Every page that you explore in this game, as far as screens you explore and jump around in, they're all black and white. So it's like a coloring book. So you're able to fill these in at your own leisure. You can draw little things in the corner. You can use different paintbrush styles to do polka dots or maybe a rainbow stripe, things like that. Different areas of the map have different color palettes too, so it helps further diversify. And what's even cooler is when you open your world map to look at this giant sprawling world you can explore, you see everything that you colored. So over the course of the game, not only are you opening up more of this map, you're opening up more of the colors of the map, and it's a very fulfilling sense of progression. You're like, yeah, I did that. I've been to those places, and I colored that map in.
So you're getting more colors as the game progresses to color with?
Yeah, you'll get different colors, but they can still only be used in certain areas. They more so just show up on this world map that you can pull up. So, for example, the swamplands will use more greens and browns and whatnot, whereas an area that's more warm might use more warm tones such as your yellows, reds, and oranges. But if you use those colors in their respective areas, then open the world map, you'll still see the things you colored, but on the map. So you can get a big, broad visual of everything you've colored over the course of this roughly 10-15 hour journey. And there's all sorts of other things too, you can go to this art school and learn different coloring styles. There's a whole decoration mechanic where you can buy furniture, and you don't buy furniture, you get furniture from doing specific quests, but you can go and decorate your house and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and when I did my research for it, it said that they tackle themes of the relationships between mentors and mentees, and then mental health. I was like, whoa, bro.
So you as this dog who's kind of like a custodian to the wielder, right? And the wielder is someone who uses a paintbrush to solve problems. And you have these aspirations to become the next wielder, but you don't feel good about your art because it's just doodles and roughed edges and not straight lines. But Chicory draws so well, and all these wielders before Chicory taught her how to draw, and you can even see images of all these previous wielders in hallways of this castle that you live in, or that you work in. And it's just this whole thing about you trying to find your voice and trying not to feel belittled by the people who came before you, or realizing that you don't have to draw perfection in order to have an artistic style. The way you draw a stick figure could be your art style. The way that you perceive things and replicate them on paper, even if it's very crude and rudimentary, is still an art style, and you should still find pride in that. That's a big running narrative throughout it.
I haven't played it, but doing my research on it, I was like, wow, this game seems a lot deeper than meets the eye, because you look at it and you can see that you're coloring all the environments, and it looks like simple, kind of childish fun. Just hey, I want to color my environments. But once I found mention of them talking about the themes of the game, I was like, okay, this is probably running a lot deeper than what I think it is.
Yeah, it's a good time. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be terrified. There's boss battles and all that stuff. And outside of that, it's pretty much just Zelda, and you're solving puzzles and whatnot with the power of color. Definitely recommend it. What about you? What do you have for your third one?
For the final pick, it's one that actually came in hot, like right off rip. I just played it not too long ago. It's Life is Strange True Colors.
I've heard so many good things.
Yeah, this game, another one that I just couldn't get away from once I started playing. For those that don't know, it's a narrative-driven single-player game. You play as Alexandra Chen. She's the protagonist who has a super ability of feeling other people's feelings. While she's doing that, she sees colors of auras that are attached to certain emotions around people. So if someone's feeling angry, that aura would be red. If someone's feeling fear, I believe it's purple. Sadness, I believe, is blue. And joy or glee is gold. The game picks up with her moving to a small town in Colorado to meet with her brother, who's made a new life there in this small town. And he's basically taking her in and giving her a new fresh start. They both come out of like a foster care, and so they went their separate ways, and then now they're uniting. So Life is Strange, I've only played the first one. I didn't play the second, and I returned here for True Colors. But the art style is, I don't know, it seems like they're on a new level now with their art style. They've always had their kind of style from the first one, but it seems like it's been taken up a notch. The graphics are really good. They're not groundbreaking, but they're great at translating the art style they're going for. The characters, I personally cared about them. There was enough context, drama, and connection between all the characters and the protagonists that made me care about all the events that take place. There's even a really cool scene where you're playing this live action roleplay quest with a child, and it's super duper charming to see all the characters. They put all this effort into giving this kid an elaborate experience to let his imagination run free in this live action roleplay. They like literally close down shops in the town and let their shops be vessels to this live action roleplay. And it was really, really cool.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I've never done live action roleplay. Like I've played D&D before, but a LARP just sounds like it's on another level with costumes and all that and actually moving about in the world rather than sitting at a table. But that quest alone, I was just smiling from ear to ear, just like seeing the kid's happiness with doing this make pretend quest with him. It was really cool. The voice acting is really great as expected. Good lip syncing as well. And I was pleasantly surprised by all the facial animations and the emoting with the facial animations, particularly like when the characters are like singing and stuff or crying. Like, I don't know, they seemed pretty accurate. Not all the time, but you can tell there were a lot of scenes where devs were like really just going ham. Like these are really talented devs behind making these emotes look so accurate. I was expecting it to be good. I didn't expect it to be this good. My playthrough is about 10 hours, so it's a pretty short one, but I think it's well worth it. I was just, I don't know, enthralled with it. The music's great. Everything was killer for me.
That's some high praise, and it matches a lot of the things that I've heard about the game, which is nothing but positive things, and I've yet to play it. I've only played Life is Strange 1 and 2, and both of those happen to be developed by a totally different developer. The people who did this game also did Before the Storm, which was the prequel to the first Life is Strange. So this is a whole different development team and all that stuff. I find it really interesting that, like, damn, they nailed it. They knocked it out of the park on their first go, and they'll also be doing the remastered collection as well. But that's really cool. I can't wait to play it. I know it's on numerous people's Game of the Year list even.
Oh, dang, I didn't know that either. That's actually really cool. I think it deserves it. I feel bad for mentioning this, but I feel like I should, just for people that want to get into the game. My only gripe with it, I felt like the beginning of the final act kind of grinds things to a halt a little bit, but then it brings it back to the story that's familiar to you after it goes through this little phase. That was my only real gripe with the game, but everything else I was 100% committed to and just completely immersed and wanted more.
That's totally fair. I think dealing with some pacing issues is such a small thing when it comes to like getting a real good heartfelt story. Like Mass Effect is the first thing that comes to mind. The beginning of Mass Effect. If anyone's ever played it, you probably know, and I'm sorry if you do enjoy it, but I'm going to bash it real hard. It's one of the most boring things in the world, and I hate playing the beginning of Mass Effect because it's a crawl. I didn't get into the series for years because it was so slow. And then it picks up, and then you're like, okay, I see where this is going, and it's like one of my favorite series now. But I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it, dude. And I know you just picked it up, and you beat it over like a weekend or like a day.
10 hours isn't too long, but I had a couple of days off. I played it like maybe 2 days, and then yesterday I had my day off and finished it yesterday. Yeah, I was like, this has to be talked about on the pod. This is one of my favorite games. It was, man, get the game, guys. It's so good.
Get it. You heard it here. Get it. Square Enix, pay us. Did you go back and did you revisit any alternate routes or kind of see different outcomes?
I haven't yet. It's something I plan to do, but I was just on such a high after it was done. I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna sit on that for a second, then we'll revisit later.
Alrighty. Well, that's the show, I think. We just talked for a very long time about a lot of things. Sky, do you want to add anything before we wrap this up?
Personally, I think we've covered it all, man. We got our 3 picks for the year for our favorite games and talked about Halo Infinite. We can return with the next episode with some more topics. There's so much to talk about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you, listener at home or wherever you may be listening to this podcast, or maybe you're not listening to it at all, in which case I'm not talking to you. Be sure to tune in a couple of weeks because we will be revisiting this list and letting you guys know what our games of the year are. We'll also be tackling the Game Awards and talking about all that good stuff. So we've got more episodes coming. The year is coming to a close, but this podcast will keep running forever. 100,000 years, Aarcadee Lounge podcast. But yeah, other than that, it's awesome being back, dude. I missed doing this podcast. I felt like a piece of my life was missing. That sounded a bit like a lot. Like, oh, I was missing this.
No, but for real, we were both just kind of itching to get back, but life gets in the way sometimes. But hey, here we are, and there's so much more to talk about, and I wish we could talk about more here, but I think we leave it at this and tackle it in more episodes.
Absolutely. Yes. I cannot wait, and I hope you guys can't wait to join us in the next one. Until then, thank you so much for tuning in to the Aarcadee Lounge podcast. We appreciate your listens and support so much. If you'd like to follow us on social medias, you can find me at Aarcadee. I would love to talk to you about any and all things video game. Sky?
You could follow me on Twitter at Skyomi, SKYOMII. It's 2 I's on Twitter. My previous one got hacked, so I had to add one more I. So yeah, hit me up on there, and we'll be talking to you guys soon.
Later, guys. Peace.
Laters.